Welcome, dear readers, to Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Khaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
We find ourselves once more in your library. I'm growing increasingly comfortable sleeping on the floor here. I've made a nice pillow out of some of the softer hardcovers, paradoxically.
The easy reading material, it also makes for great bedding.
Yeah, I find it very comfortable. It is getting a little bit colder as the winter months are upon us. I wonder if there is anything that I might be able to use for kindling to warm myself. No, I can already see that that's a bad idea.
Smoke damage to books is not a good thing.
Okay, so I know that it isn't, but doesn't it add an air of cachet, an air of class to have a... I mean, you have the leather-backed armchairs that we talked about previously.
Right. If you say a book that it survived the fire of the Great Library of Alexandria, then yes, that adds a certain dimension.
Right.
If it is just the paper book back of Amazon, then smoke and fire and water damage is not a selling point.
Okay, I understand that it's a lot to ask. Can I try one more argument on you?
By all means.
You have 900 copies of Fahrenheit 451.
Yes.
So, what would be more sublime than lighting 899 of them on fire?
They're all different editions.
But they're
collector's items.
No,
they're reprints, translations. Some have personal annotations. No, I can't miss any of those.
No, of course, it's still your library.
You can cuddle up with a cat if you like.
We have yet to reach a détente, but I'm working on it.
Today's book.
Yes!
I have it over here. It is by Eric Frank Russell.
All three of them?
All three of them.
Three gentlemen work together to write one book for us. Oh.
Well, I think Eric is not more of a friend of the family than an actual brother.
Oh, yes, Mom's new friend.
Yes.
And the surname is silent.
Yes.
Okay.
4 letters, none of them are pronounced. So the title of the book, also 4 letters, WASP.
I was very excited when you proposed this because it looks like a proper old-fashioned boys' adventure.
Which is pretty much what it is. It's not boys, but it is written in that same style, you know?
Yeah.
Edith Blyton would have been jealous if she lived long enough to be able to read this.
Now, obviously, I know this, but maybe for the readers at home, which one was...
Famous from the Five. The Five series.
The Five. Oh, yeah, no, I've actually read those. They had the... spaceship.
Have you been going through the Pornhub comments?
Well, since Tumblr shut down, I've got to go somewhere.
So, the cover. Well, I think it's more of a mishmash, just a few elements thrown together.
Yeah, I had some problems identifying it as well. And also, by the way, for the readers at home, if you look on your podcasting device right now, you should be seeing the cover of today's book. And if not, check the show notes for an image or a link.
We see, of course, our hero,
Blake Whitecock. Now, I am a huge Blake Whitecock fan, so I was delighted that you picked one of the very early volumes in which this beloved and problematic character first appeared.
Yes, it's definitely not the first age-wise for Blake. He's clearly a little bit later on in his career in this book.
While still maintaining the thrill of the boy's adventure, but for a more mature baby boomer generation.
Right. On the front of the cover you can see various jets which are clearly from the 571 Squadron. They're not all the same jet, but I think that might be artistic liberty on the...
Really? Because look, the front two, the very forward one has knobbly bits on what I think is the jet, and the other one doesn't have on... the jet and
this one's clearly got ramjets or more of a rocket.
Yeah, ramjets. That's the one. I was just testing you. Yeah. And the windshield is closer to the front.
That one's got the windshield in the nose, which is always weird. I mean, you see that in bombers, but not in jets.
Yeah, that was my thought too. Bombers. Yeah,
where the top one is more like the later bubble canopy design.
Exactly, the bubble canopy, famously developed by
Grumman Northrop.
God damn, you're good at this.
And, of course, the titular creature.
Yeah.
The titular wasp of the book, which is also the nickname of the squadron. So I think it's one of those things where they're trying to be coy and playing with the...
now, you grew up as an only child. I have several brothers. So this smacks to me as a situation where they each had a different idea about what the wasp should be. And Mom eventually cut the Gordian knot.
And they compromised by putting
it all in. I mean, that's how my life has turned out.
Furthermore, we can see Blake in his very striking flight outfit. He's wearing the wasp helmet, of course.
It seems really impractical.
It is, but it's kind of like portrayed in the book as being necessary to fly that particular aircraft.
Oh yes, the psionic receptors and the various other doodads and gizmos that are mentioned throughout.
I also never really understood his jacket. I mean, I've never seen a sleeveless flight jacket.
Isn't it cute?
It's cute. It's one of those leather tough guy looks, and he's got his darling, pretty boy, cocky smile on his face, which is just.
Well, that's how we like our Blake Whitecock adventures. He's supposed to be just a little bit gullible, but also a little
off the cuff a little bit.
Yeah.
The story. It starts off in merry old England, of course, on the home base of the 579th Squadron.
Yeah.
Blake just returning from his flight, essentially walking up against a reprimand for the flying that he just did.
And the fact that his test plane is still exploding behind him. As you mentioned on a previous episode, I believe, any landing that you can walk away from
is a good landing.
Which I believe you got from this very book.
It is mentioned, yes. It's like it doesn't add the second part. It's like it's a great one if you can reuse the plane, which is clearly not the case in this situation.
No, but you can tell that his commander was certainly thinking that.
And he was like, even then, his commander likes to scold him. But, the amount of training that goes into getting a pilot, especially of Blake's caliber.
Blake is a polymath and, what do you call it? One of those, a prodigy.
Do-it-all, jack-of-all-trades characters.
Yeah, the uomo universale.
Yeah, the well-rounded, classically trained. I don't think in any of the books he plays an instrument, but...
Oh, he does in my fan fiction.
Well...
Yes, he has a significant...
organ player.
A flautist with amazing breath control. Yeah, I have a little thing for Blake.
He flaunts it well.
Yeah, well, if you got it, flaunt it. So it's no wonder that after he survived this reprimand, he is administratively discharged as a cover for his being brought under the new test program, where he meets his new co-pilot, Helen.
Right.
And sort of love interest.
Or at least he fancies her being interested in him.
I mean, we probably need to talk about that. Do we think that the writers, Eric, Frank, and Russell, were aware of the fantastic subtext that we're setting down here? Because, you've got it too, right?
I think it's a classic example of a woman being friendly to a man being mistaken by the man as flirting.
This is to us a much more familiar trope than it was at the time, but certainly with the introduction of Monique, the third member of their team, who is explicitly mentioned as wearing a black satin shirt. Now, if you have any familiarity with the Hollywood Code and the various versions thereof, that was a lesbian signifier.
I didn't pick up on that.
Here's why I think that a British audience should understand that. Like there were certain codes for male friendships that were more than friendships. Young men who meet at university and they go rowing together and
spend time lounging in the grass and reading each other poetry.
Yes, platonic in the way that Plato probably did in his own youth, right? If you get my drift. Yes, exactly. The friendship between Helen and Monique that almost certainly had a lot more than just friendships going on. Like they shared a bunk.
Wasn't that in the UK homosexuality was explicitly forbidden?
Yes,
but it only involved males because nobody had the guts to tell Queen Victoria that women could also be gay and
that there were other forms of sodomy that she didn't know about yet.
Exactly. And maybe it was inconceivable that they would get up to that sort of thing.
That women desire sex? That's nonsense.
With each other?
Which was very much Blake's approach in his enthusiastic innocence as he was courting Helen and befriending Monique, because he wanted to be very supportive of Helen's best friend.
And of course they formed a team. As pilots, the crew, I should say, not just pilots.
Yeah, very good.
Of the new WASP.
British ingenuity at its finest. They had a cunning new idea for a new craft. This time somehow based on biotech, organic technological fusion, cybernetics, Cyb-WASP,
insect technology.
Insectology? Well, okay, we're getting...
Insectology.
Okay. Look, if it was about bees, we could just head straight there with Psy-Bees or Bee-Borgs. Do you have maybe another book that's about bees that we can...
Well, I do, but I
suppose it's not worth...
It's about beekeeping and honey and mead making, so... But
let's put that on the list for one of these.
It's very technical. It's not really a story.
So is that one of those things that you wouldn't mind if it just sort of disappeared into the fireplace and I didn't freeze for the...
if you never want to drink any mead in my place again, then...
Death first. I will freeze gladly. We're going to take a break here and maybe have a little bit of mead.
Sounds like a plan.
So what I was saying before we got stuck on this word that we never did figure out for what kind of technology, we call it biotechnology, insectoid. In proper British fashion, there was a fantastic idea for a new technology, but not a fantastic idea about scale, a problem that the Titanic famously ran into as well. So they hedged and built this contraption on several different scales, from the microscopic or regular wasp-sized to about the size of a cat. And your little librarianess is sort of gazing at me.
There's fighter for the heat pad.
There is hate in her eyes. No, I don't dare.
So yes, you have the little drones, the little actual wasp-sized things which act as a swarm. But then there's the more like scary-sized wasp, which is more the size you can see on the cover, which was kind of like a Yorkshire Terrier-sized wasp. Which would
yes.
be like, and those are like, I guess, preludes to what we'd now call a drone.
It was very prescient, as much of the science fiction of the era was.
It's the remote teleoperation, and this is where the rest of the front cover comes in, where of course he's got the fly helmet, which doubles as the VR goggles. So they didn't call them that they called them telepresence goggles.
Yes, and it required quite a ridiculous cathode ray tube attachment over the eyes,
which would be beaming things into his eyes.
Ionized streams or magnetized or whatever the technology is.
And then the remote control wand for conducting the wasps.
See, I thought that it was because the large version, which is the version that Blake Whitecock flies, which is the size of a jet. Now, because insects, they have a certain limitation to how much oxygen they can take in, so when they grow past a certain size within our current atmosphere, I really love that they delved into the science quite as much.
Just put oxygen tanks on it and because you only need the oxygen tanks during takeoff and landing phases. At other times they move so fast that enough air moves through them that they actually
through the
thorax.
Brachia, they've got little holes.
And make an analogy with like the air intake of fighter jets as well. So kind of have to bring the thing up to speed, and once it's going, then it's fine. But it's just like during the slow moving periods, it can't get enough air in.
Much like a scramjet.
Exactly, yes.
See, I know an aeronautics thing as well.
Fantastic. Very well.
Thank you. I am very proud of me. They enter into my favourite part of any Blake Whitecock novel, which is a montage. Yes, exactly. And nobody else does it as well as the Blake Whitecock series. The staccato rhythm of these little vignettes, so difficult to render in prose, always thrills and excites me.
The grossness of having to deal with the wasp exhaust of the training, the romantic in-between flings, the looks of desire and disgust between the various main characters that we see.
Oh, the bar scene.
And it's a recurring theme. Blake walks in and he thinks that they're both waiting for him when they're sitting at the table with their cocktail. And he just swaggers his way in and he...
Hello, ladies.
Exactly.
But all too quickly, the montage has to give way to the very first mission.
This is back to the little flashback with Blake, well, not crashing the jet, but barely bringing it home, which gains him the reprimand, which means that it's not him who goes out on the first mission, but it's Helen and Monique who get sent out. And, of course, don't return. So, Monique and Helen get sent off on their mission. They're being sent
to
the Falklands.
The Falklands,
Islas Malvinas, that's the one. Turns out that they have been captured, and that Monique has managed to send out a distress message with one of her wasp swarm thingies.
Very ingeniously, as she's shown repeatedly to be the most ingenious of the three. Now, it is a bit of a shame how much of that message she wastes berating Blake for not being there and not backing them up.
Which wasn't even his fault, but no,
it wasn't.
It was his fault that it wasn't his fault.
But it was so specific. And Blake, I blame you. If we die, please tell our parents we did our best and that it's Blake's fault. Like, I kind of think that she expected to be released, and this was just her fucking with Blake again, or maybe that's just the kind of gal she is. Like, middle finger to the end for someone that
maybe she wrote a different message for all the wasps, and this just happened to be the one that I think she let them go into the jet stream.
I'm sure we can figure out how this works. And then one of them parasitically chewed its way into an albatross because they go far.
Yes.
Do they land in Britain? Probably. And then the albatross got snatched out of the air by a falcon.
Right. Which freed the wasp, which allowed it to fly into the fig. And,
no, we're not done yet. We can deal with so many steps. Come on.
I was going to go fig.
And then the falcon was captured and domesticated and predated upon by a... What do we call it?
Fox snatches falcon.
Fox snatches falcon.
Raises... To be the pet fox of the Q branch.
Of the quartermaster, who has just given birth to several fox kits. One of whom, I'm kind of losing it. Look,
Q Leslie.
Leslie, the quartermaster or quartermistress.
We have no idea
because Leslie.
We
just don't know because they are never given a pronoun at any point. Like anytime anybody references it's always the quartermaster
Leslie or Leslie. So we don't know. Turns out we have the main conflict of the book, which we haven't addressed.
Yes, the lingering Falklands Cold War.
Yes. The Welsh And the Argentinians...
Intractable enemies for centuries.
Grazing rights in the Welsh and the sheep, they're very...
yes.
It's been holding the geopolitical stage hostage
for
with tension.
Decades. Even the nuclear nations are mere pawns between these intractable enemies.
The UK is a nuclear nation. The subs are based in Wales.
Scotland, right?
Oh, yes, you're right.
No, I think those were kept well away
Scotland is close to Wales.
From famously warlike Wales.
Well, we wouldn't want, sea-launched leak. That seems like a terrible idea.
I appreciate your attempts at comedy on this podcast, but let's not make light of what has been one of the defining conflicts of the late 20th century.
The shipping through the Saragossa Sea was impossible due to the continuing warring between the Welsh and the Argentinians.
Exactly. Like
Buenos Aires was a no-go area for anybody.
Oh, hell no. Not even James Bond would dare make his way into Swansea.
Speaking of James Bond, what do you think are the correlations between Blake Whitecock and James Bond? Do you think that Ian Fleming might have borrowed from...
Well, it doesn't seem likely that Ian Fleming would have been reading Blake Whitecock novels, but the other way around...
Yeah, you think it's derivative?
I mean, it may have just set the mold for how certain stories are told, and once the Whitecock novels were mature enough that they entered into actual real shit like the Falklands Cold War, that during the childish, innocent boy's adventure they would have never touched upon.
No, that's far too angsty and geopolitically important, and that would that's the thing that might happen in the background, but that's not important for boys and girls at the
they have just regular old adventures breaking into the Kremlin, or the invasion of northern Mongolia.
Cart vacation.
Yeah, low stakes shit like that.
Yes, there might be a robber or a thief, which has to be Scooby-Doo level of.
Yeah, exactly. And then they have friends in the CIA, minor intelligence agencies, but never something as serious as Los Fuerzas Especiales.
So, Blake's flight status is reinstated, and he gets to fly the WASP.
Finally.
The
oxygen tanks are loaded up. The Stinger weapon is charged, but it has never yet been tested.
Well, not successfully.
Not successfully, no.
Again, remember how his flight status got grounded.
And I thought that was actually quite a tender scene when his commander came up to him to wish him luck, the very commander that had grounded him in the first place, because it turns out at this point that the reason that he crashed that plane is the same reason that Helen and Monique went down, namely a weapon that the British were trying to perfect, which now it turns out that the Argentinians already have.
Right. Their helicopter, as we learn later in the book, was taken down because the Argentinians developed an internal combustion engine deactivation ray.
The I.C.E.D.R ray. If they just had
what happened to them? They got iced.
They got iced. See, okay, no, that's better. No, but they got iced. Internal combustion engine deactivation. They got iced. Raid. I'm just saying, I'm just a little bit disappointed by the opportunity, because if it was the internal combustion engine restriction, that was an ICER. We got them hit them with the ICER.
I think the whole acronymy thing didn't really happen until the 80s. I think
we just talked about Ian Fleming. You had Schmidt. What else did you have?
That's Spectre. Not clever. Those aren't clever. Even as a kid, I thought that was a bullshit acronym. Maybe we have to put it in the light of the Falklands Cold War that it.
It was a very serious time.
It was, and maybe bring a little bit of light,
a bit of levity to the
seriousness. I mean, it's we laugh at the world because otherwise we would cry.
Ooh, who said that?
Me.
Just you?
Well, I'm sure I got it from someone.
Okay, but we're broadcasting this on a podcast. If we don't attribute, can you imagine what would happen if we just used some kind of copyrighted work and just made up stuff about it, and we didn't acknowledge what it actually was, and just horribly misrepresented, horribly misattributed it, maybe didn't even say the name of the person who created it. We could never get away with that.
People would think that we're just making it up as we're going along.
I know. We would be ripe for lawsuits.
So Blake gets in the WASP, the oxygen tanks are loaded up, he flies out, and I think this is actually an interesting part of the story. Because of the oxygen tanks, the WASP only has a certain limited lifespan when it's not flying. Whenever it's on the ground, those oxygen tanks are depleting, because it's not as much as when it's doing low-level slow flight.
I thought that was great. It adds such interesting stakes.
Once he gets there, and once he gets on the ground, he has a certain limited amount of time before he has to get the plane, he has to get the WASP
back into the air in order for it to live.
So he flies the plane to Cordoba. I think that's my favorite scene of the book. So when he walks into the casino.
Oh, yeah.
Teniente-Coronel Jones's casino in Cordoba.
What the fuck was up with that name?
I have no idea.
Is there a Welsher name than Jones? Could he be a defector? Wales is famously cosmopolitan that way. Like, this will be for the historians to correct us on. Maybe that's where the schism between the Spanish-speaking and the Welsh-speaking world first occurred. Their disagreement over how to pronounce the double L. Yeah, should it be a ya or should it be a
Jesus?
Well, in this case, Llama versus Llama.
But anyway, back to the scene.
We keep getting distracted by real geopolitical reality.
Yeah, it's funny how that happened.
He swaggers into the
casino, and I think this is where the relationship between Helen and Monique comes out, because they're sitting at the table, and he just swaggers in and he starts talking to them, and he does not realize he's the third wheel at this point.
Well,
because they're totally into each other, and and he's just talking to both of them as if one of this is main chick and one of this is side chick, and he hasn't decided which one is which yet.
Oh my god, that makes so much sense. In the moment, I was so caught up with the story. I mean, they were obviously Teniente-Coronel Jones's prisoners at that point. And I thought that they were just trying to communicate to Blake that everything is not kosher, nothing is as relaxed as you thought. And Blake just completely doesn't get it. But if this was also happening at the same time, that they were finally getting closer in their own relationship, and then butts Blake Whitecock as he usually does.
That's how I see the scene.
Oh, that's a lovely way to... I mean, it seems a little bit weird that Helen would be distracted from her current mission, but quite in character for Monique. I mean, she's, as the only Welsh character, Monique is a fantastic exemplar of the plain-spokenness and
her love of Leek.
I love the casino scene as well. It was very Fleming-esque, just as you say. These are the moments where Blake Whitecock just shines. He walks in with confidence, brash, cocky, arrogance almost, but it kind of pays off in the way that male fantasies very often do. He is assumed to be a much bigger deal than he actually is, but he creates, and I don't think it's pure accident, he creates enough chaos that opportunities arise.
Because he catches the eyes of Luise,
the smoky femme fatale,
the cigarette in the holster.
Yeah,
she's the one with the martini here, which I kind of like.
3 olives. Did you notice? Ooh, there things are getting serious.
I do love someone with a taste for gin, so it's
a quality that you share with her. I mean, do you like your martinis dirty?
Oh God, no! I hate olives. This is where we meet the villain of the story, who
at this point is presented as just Teniente-Coronel Jones's squeeze. Or his mistress,
which is for like a useful role for her to play, because it lends her the ear of the
junta.
The junta, that's the one, which is in charge of Argentina at that point. Luise is just playing Colonel Jonas.
Jones, it's just Jones. It would have
Colonel Jonas, Cojonas.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
I'm sure this was intentional I think it was one of the things that Frank put in the book.
Oh yeah, that's totally a Frank thing. Because let's look at it. What are Eric, Frank and Russell famous for? Like Frank, a Spanish speaker, in jail up until I think 1995. I think he was released from Her Majesty's prison about the same time that Mandela was released. Yeah, no, I got that wrong, didn't I? No. Well, maybe in this universe.
He got released before he got imprisoned in this one. Yeah. that sounds like a good show.
But really, the person pulling the strings is, of course, Luise
Ciccone.
Ciccone?
That's how you say? Oh, I don't know. This is one of those cases where a author takes a historical character and places them into a slightly more novelized role. Like
fanciful
things. It might have happened. It could have happened. Maybe we wish it happened like that.
Like the Wold, whatever family, the Wold, it's going to kill me. Doc Savage and the Philip Jose Farmer. That's the one.
Okay, yeah. Neil Stephenson has a habit of doing this as well. Yeah, some with fictionalized roles.
A proud tradition of bullshit.
Yes, absolutely. Well.
Now, I thought that the dynamic between the three of them changed a great deal here, because
Blake is like being blissfully or blatantly unaware that he is the third wheel in the situation,
or the fourth when he encounters Luise.
Yes. Do you think something was going on between Helen, Monique, and Luise?
Monique was not as jealous. I think that's the fair way to say it. Jealous of Luise's attention toward herself or Helen than she was toward Blake.
Right,
I think Monique was maybe open to, let's see where this go. Let's see. Right. Then again, maybe she was putting her intelligence training to use, and she was trying to seduce Louise as a... I mean, they are still prisoners at this point.
Right, so it could be Stockholm Syndrome. But anyway, Blake makes his way back to the WASP, where he finds another one of Monique's little wasps, who is like, now that she's aware that he's here, she knows how to send her little micro-drones out to contact the mothership, so to speak.
Yeah, without the enormous delay of transatlantic travel via... Yeah.
So she can just tell them to home in on that, and he finds them, and he learns about the location of the
volcanic lair, which is always my favorite. Like, every single Blake Whitecock novel has a volcanic lair in it, somehow.
It's a bit of a trope.
It can be an ice volcano. It was a helium volcano that one time. When he returns to his wasp, he is barely in time to save the poor animal from dying, from lack of flying, essentially.
Yeah.
The oxygen tanks are almost... Speaking of poor animals, the oxygen tanks are almost expended. He manages to get it in the air, but he knows that the next time he lands, that creature is not going to survive. The creature is alive as long as it's in the air, and this places him in a bit of a moral dilemma. Like, he has to exit his vehicle, which is what the animal is.
Right, yes.
But, speaking of other animals that we hope would run out of air...
Oh, but she's been fed now, and she's going to be shut up in a minute now. He has to, exit his plane, or, he does his remote telemetry thing with the medium-sized
And this is a beautiful example of literary symmetry, because the very skills that allowed him to survive the crash of his desk plane at the very start. I mean, it's a very low opening parachute, allow him to exit his wasp mid-flight, send the creature continuing to fly after he's withdrawn the Stinger weapon. Now, exactly how he managed to draw that out
in flight?
Yeah, exactly. That's a bit of a...
It's kind of like a bolt turret. You can kind of crawl through the back thing, and then you can dismantle it and pull it inwards, I think.
Oh, wow. They really hollowed that wasp out.
Well, there's a conduit running underneath, It's like... It's
like a Jeffries tube from Star Trek.
Yes, exactly. It's like that. That's how it's described in the book. So it's like you can pull it, insert it, and pull
Although
it
this being the RAF, it would probably be a St. John's or a Murgatroyd's tube.
Johnson's tube.
Johnson's tube sounds like the urethra, honestly.
Well, yes.
The Johnson's tube, yes. that every naval vehicle has. It's riddled with Johnson's tubes.
Lots of semen and all that.
He ejects the wasp so that it can survive, sending it flying off back to home base in the South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands.
Yes.
And he skydives into the caldera of the dormant volcano.
It's a very short skydive. It's a low altitude opening, so it's more like, I think it's a 10-second ride, or something, considering the altitude that he dropped out of.
And he's still lucky that there were inactive, magma chutes, magma tunnels in the caldera, because he would have smacked onto the ground if it weren't for his ability to navigate right into one of those holes and make his way down it. That was exciting.
Well, he gets caught he gets the parachute.
He gets the updraft.
Well, he gets caught on a stalactite. So then there's the typical scene where he has to climb out of his harness and.
Yeah, you'd say it's typical. I mean, it's typical now.
Oh, true.
It's. Every cliche started out as a good idea, and I think that this was still the early days of that trope. And so, he climbs down, showing a lot of other skills that he learned in other Blake Whitecock novels. His mountaineering, actually just the mountaineering. There's a lot of mountaineering.
Also sneaking,
judo chopping, guards as he passes them. I got to say, I was a little bit disappointed that the guards didn't have a theme. I mean, considering that this book is called The Wasp, I kind of expected more colorful villains, but I suppose that as if there were bees, or as if there were, as if there were
monarch butterflies.
Monarch butterflies. What does that remind me of? So I guess they want to be more
hemisphere. They don't really do insects as much there as we do up here. So
is that true?
Well, especially in the Falklands.
Is that a fact?
It's in the middle of the South Atlantic. It's like practically the South Pole at that point.
Okay. If you say so, then it is true. In the world of our podcast and possibly the real world, and we'll find out.
I will definitely.
Big pollination problem. Hence the reliance on animal husbandry over agriculture, exacerbating the conflict with the
sheep grazing rights.
Sheep grazing rights are extremely important. That was very good. That was really good. I think we're establishing a horrifying but internally consistent world.
All right, so it comes to the
big confrontation between Luise Ciccone. What did we say?
Ciccone.
Ciccone.
I don't know.
You're the one who's supposed to know. In her control room, commanding all of her flunkies, there is the fantastic firefight. Now, they hadn't counted on Blake having the Stinger weapon, which was the very same internal combustion engine deactivation ray, which works just as well on...
Against firearms.
Yeah, exactly. They're also based on combustion.
As long as it's a bit awkward, as long as you're pointing it at someone and have it turn on, their guns don't do it.
Yeah, and which I thought was... like reviving the boyish charm of the boy's adventure, where it's fairly bloodless and almost pacifist.
It's the guys with the guns holding Helen and Monique under fire, and
who now realize,
hey, he's got the thing. We can just go. More judo chopping,
because they're very accomplished martial artists, and
you can just imagine the skin tight bodysuits in the movie adaptation when they're like seeing their way through the.
Now,
scene.
how would we have both of those women played by Anne Hathaway?
I was going to say Halle Berry, but
actually, I think Halle Berry would be exemplary as Luise, as the vamp.
Yes.
Okay, losing control here a little bit, but yes. So two Anne Hathaways and Halle Berry. Who would you cast as Blake Whitecock? Don't think it matters. It could be fucking anyone, and it wouldn't matter during that confrontation.
I mean, he's not British, but.
Yeah, no, you got me there. Oh, that would be amazing. Because he's so guileless and charming and gullible and confident.
Oh, he would be fantastic. It's like
Chris Pratt as Blake Whitecock, and then Anne Hathaway as two completely different women.
Oh, that would be funny.
I mean, fuck, if anyone could do it, it'd be Anne Hathaway.
So, that kind of...
It's the usual. It's for some reason the this or that explodes, and the whole place is going to come down. We have to get out of here.
They managed to grab one of the Argentinian helicopters,
especially now that the larger scale I.C.E.D.R ray has been disabled. Luise obviously makes her scowling escape in an escape pod. I'll get you next time. I think they did a great job. I think this is the first book that we've treated in this podcast that I unreservedly enjoyed.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yes, it's not
no disrespect to any of the previous ones.
Just a chore to read them through.
Well, it never is. It's always a delight to do these podcasts with you.
Oh, that doesn't mean that the book is any good.
Nor was this technically good, but it was certainly. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a great deal. All right. So, do you want to give this book a rating? Now, you've previously done it out of pi. You've done it out of the snake number 7. What should we do this time? What's a good wasp number? 6.
Waste. Oh.
Okay, so that's fine. That's fine. Measuring in inches with smaller being better or worse.
Okay, if it's that, I'll call it a 34-inch waist. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but it's not a 28-inch waist.
In that case, my review is going to be nice. As waist, yeah, nice. Yes, dividing this book up into its sections, where you have the beginning, which is the head, and the middle, which is the thorax, and the abdomen, which is the conclusion.
Yes.
Now, it had a fat-ass abdomen because the volcanic layer was fucking awesome, but
I think it had 5 out of 7 possible stripes on a wasp's ass.
Okay, well, what do we have in store for our readers next week?
We are going to be reviewing a book by Stephanie Meyer, in where a much older man impersonates being a high schooler in order to stalk an underage girl.
The remake of Matilda.
No, it's Twilight.
No! End of podcast. End of friendship. I know it's just a joke, but you would never do this to me if you didn't. And that about covers it. Thank you for joining us at Cover My Ass, where baffling books, fucking baffling books, are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Khaki.
And I'm Kay. And remember,
we only judge a book by its cover. See, I think they can hear it better over the music if we say it.